Let's talk about the Super Bowl that nobody wanted. Hello everyone, I'm Sarah from Everyday Starlet. Welcome to my channel. I make videos to inspire you to be the star of your own life. Okay, today I want to talk a little bit about things that are going on in football, and I realize that that is not my typical content, although thinking about it, I actually do have a lot of football related content on my channel. I actually have like a really old video of like Super Bowl party ideas from back when I was trying to see if I could be more of a lifestyle blogger. I have several videos about Tom Brady, and I'm gonna get into him a little bit in this video. I do also have a couple videos talking about Taylor and Travis, and also a little bit about the Kelce brothers. And I also have a video about Cam Newton, who was a former football player, but this was more about one of his recent interviews that he did. So I do have a lot of football related videos on my channel, but I don't know how much of my regular audience are actually football fans, but I did think that some of the topics that are coming up in the NFL right now, and football in general, and some of the figures involved in the NFL and Super Bowl and some of the narratives and stuff kind of tie in a little bit to particularly masculine energy, masculine feminine energies, masculinity in society, and things like that. So I don't know, I just thought some of these things might be interesting topics to talk about. Before I get into this, I will say, full disclosure, I'm from New England. I'm a lifetime Patriots fan, although I will admit in high school, and I'm aging myself when I say this, in high school I had an obsessive crush on Troy Aikman. So I did used to watch the Cowboys back in the day. I had a poster of him on my wall. I actually have a picture of him on like my high school vision board. That's a dream that didn't come true, but whatever. But I am a lifetime Patriots fan. I am by no means a football expert, so if someone comes to me and starts trying to challenge me on all kinds of like fancy football statistics or stats or anything like that, like I don't care. But I do know a little bit about football, and being a Patriots fan, I've watched my fair share of Super Bowls. I followed football, but I also know a ton about media, media marketing, celebrity marketing, things like that. That's been an area of expertise of mine for many, many years. And my content on this channel is very much about masculine feminine energies, which is something I've been studying for quite a few years now. So I'm coming at a lot of these topics not as a football expert per se, but more analyzing a little bit about more media perception when it comes to some of these players and how it ties into masculine feminine energies, masculinity, and topics like that. Now, my primary audience is women, but I just want to make it very clear, because I can already hear the comments now that I get frequently, who are you as a woman to tell a man how to be masculine? And I want to make it clear, when I talk about masculine energy or masculinity or things like that, I'm not just making this stuff up. Like, I'm not just like, hey, I'm gonna tell men today that being masculine means this, and it's just something I just came up with. If you don't want to listen to me, because I understand there's a lot of men that don't want to hear about masculine energy or masculinity from a woman, I accept that. It is what it is. I highly recommend that you look into some of the works that I have looked into, like the work of David Data. I highly recommend the book King, Warrior, Magician, Lover by Robert Moore. Also the works of Joseph Campbell. He has a lot of stuff about like mythology and what makes someone a hero. He was actually very influential in George Lucas creating Star Wars, which I go into that in my masculine feminine energies in Star Wars video. So this stuff is stuff that like men in the world have accepted is masculinity. And I understand that there's a lot of men that don't want to hear about what it means to be masculine from a woman. If there are any men watching and anything I say resonates for you or makes you take a look at yourself and makes you make positive changes in your life, I'll be happy. Even if it just happens for one of you, I will be happy. That said, I'm not specifically making this video to tell men how to be masculine. The reason I make videos where I talk about masculinity and masculine energy and things like that in men primarily is because I want women to feel more confident in identifying healthy masculine energy and healthy masculinity in the men that they run into in the world. Because I really do believe that women have an innate intuition where they can sense whether a man is a safe and healthy masculine energy or whether he's not. Unfortunately, too many women today are very disconnected from that. A lot of women have shut that part of them down. A lot of women today get a lot of false messages in the same way a lot of men get false messages about what it means to be masculine. I really do feel like women really need to be able to identify healthy masculine energy and healthy masculinity, because first of all, it helps women to get into better, healthier, safer relationships, but I also think it helps women stay safer in the world in general. So that's really the reason I even talk about these topics in the first place. But there's a lot of topics that are kind of surrounding the NFL and the Super Bowl right now that I kind of want to get into. So for any of you who need a little bit of a summary about what's going on, I'm filming this prior to the Super Bowl happening. I think I know where this story is going. I know Taylor Swift has been very connected to the NFL, and all I can hear in my head is like, I think I've seen this film before and I didn't like the ending. I think I know where this is going with the Super Bowl. I hope it doesn't go the way I think it's gonna go, but I'm probably right about how it's gonna go. But there are a few things that I want to talk about. If any of you are unfamiliar with the NFL, or you're live under a rock, because I feel like this is all I've been hearing about nonstop, and I don't even follow a lot of like football content or football things on social media, and this is like all I seem to hear about, is that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. They've won the last 2 years. They're going for a third year in a row, and if they win, they will have what they call a three-peat. So they will have won 3 in a row, which apparently no team in NFL history has ever done. It's my understanding, I heard this fact and I didn't fact check it, but I heard that there's only one major sports league that has ever done that before, and that's the Los Angeles Lakers. But a lot of people are making a big deal about the Kansas City Chiefs. A lot of people are making a huge deal about their quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, being a three-peat quarterback, and does that make him the GOAT of football, like the greatest of all time, and does that make him better than Tom Brady? That's the narrative. That is like literally the only thing that anybody is talking about in sports right now. It's getting a little obsessive, not gonna lie. But it's kind of like last year, all the NFL had to talk about was Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, and now that like they're still together, I still think they're a fake relationship. If you want to know my feelings about them, I have had people ask for an update about what I think about Taylor and Travis. I don't really have any updates. My opinion of them hasn't changed at all. They're less in the public eye, but my guess is, I've said this before in my other video, and I'm gonna say this, their public image is PR. Everything that you see celebrities do in connection to anything, but you know, like take the NFL for example, celebrities have to agree to let the NFL use their image. They're showing her less. It could be on the surface just because there's less of a buzz around it, because this is like the second season that Taylor and Travis have been a couple, so to speak. So, you know, they're just showing her a little bit less. She hasn't gone to as many games, and so it's less of a draw. I also think some of it is that Taylor's not bringing as many celebrity friends with her, probably because some of her celebrity friends are in a bit of a controversy now. If you'd like to look at my video about Blake and Ryan and that drama, you can check out that video. That was actually from a while ago, but most of the stuff I said in that video still stands. And so Taylor's kind of been distancing herself from bringing some of her celebrity friends, because some of them are a bit controversial right now, so she's mostly just going with like her mom and Mama Kelce and stuff like that, which makes sense. But overall, I feel like the NFL has been showing a lot fewer celebrities in general. Last year they were showing a lot more, Taylor being the most, but they were showing other celebrities. They were showing Eminem a lot more. Granted, the Lions were in the playoffs longer, so they were showing him in correlation with them, but they were showing celebrities in general more last season than they are this season. I hate to bring this into politics, but you guys have to understand, I mean, the NFL is a business, and they're into marketing, and a lot of these things with celebrities and celebrities showing up at their games and things like that, a lot of this is all PR. It's all arranged. Whether you think that Taylor and Travis are endgame or a couple or whatever, what we see of them and Taylor being shown and stuff is all arranged with PR people and stuff. I have a theory. I do find it interesting that most of these celebrities the NFL obviously had associations with. Taylor Swift, they don't get to use Taylor Swift's image if Taylor Swift doesn't approve them using her image. Eminem, even though he probably is a Lions fan, they're using his image because he's allowing them to use his image. He obviously has had deals with them. He promoted the draft last year. Like, these kind of things are, these are celebrities. They have deals with corporations like the NFL and things like that to use their image. Whether or not they're actually fans of the games or stuff like that is a totally separate thing. And obviously if there is a genuine interest in watching the games and supporting the teams and stuff, it makes it more genuine. But they are arranged promos. And I do suspect that the fact that the NFL was using a lot of celebrities that, and I hate to get political, and this is a politically neutral statement, but I just want to say that most of the celebrities they were using came out very intensely supporting Kamala Harris during the election. And seeing as though she did lose the election, and pretty significantly, and the fact that some of the players on some of the teams and some of the people associated with some of the players on the teams supported Trump, some blatantly supported Trump, some were more low-key about supporting Trump, and it were those people that tended to see like a boost in sales of their jerseys and things like that. Like, the NFL is not dumb. The NFL knows that they have a job to do when it comes to reading their audience and things like that. So I really suspect the reason why the NFL is showing celebrities less this season is because they're realizing that celebrities didn't help the presidential race as much as people thought that it would. And I think the NFL is starting to say, okay, maybe we need to pull back on the celebrity stuff because it's not working as well as it used to in politics or in marketing our games. And I state this because I just want people to be aware of what's going on. There's a lot of buzz about the NFL being rigged. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I feel like this has been a kind of a rumor and a suspicion for years. Like, years people have suspected, well, they've suspected cheating, but they've also suspected that the games were being set up or rigged or things like that. There's more of a belief around it, probably now more than ever, partly because of social media. So everything gets amped up on social media. Before, something that a couple guys might sit around at a sports bar and talk about are now being talked about online, where like people all over the world can have an opinion about it. These ideas tend to go viral and they tend to be bigger ideas than they would be just with people having conversations watching Monday Night Football or something like that. There's people that talk about, can it be scripted? And again, this isn't the point of the video, but I just want to go into this because I feel like there's like no other outlet I have for talking about this. I've seen some people comparing the NFL to the WWE. For those of you that don't watch, because I've watched both off and on sporadically, the WWE calls itself sports entertainment. It is widely known that the matches with the WWE are scripted. Now, when it says scripted, there are sometimes scripts are written for, you know, what they're going to come out and say or different storyline things. But one of the things that I read in the Bella Twins book, which I have a video about Nikki Bella, by the way, if you want to listen to that video, one of the things that the Bella Twins talk about is that the matches aren't choreographed. So a lot of it is kind of like people practice together, but there's a lot of improvisation when they're doing these moves because they really want the people to be in the moment, but there are like key points that they have to hit throughout the match, and the ending and how it's going to end is typically scripted. This is like widely accepted, and that's why they call themselves sports entertainment. I think a lot of people are starting to think that the NFL is much more similar to the WWE than people originally thought. Now, would people still watch the NFL if it was the WWE? A lot of people watch the WWE. So I don't necessarily think that the NFL would lose everything, but I do think if people did find out that it was essentially the WWE and it was a pre-planned outcome, I do think a lot of people would get very upset because they would feel misled. That said, when people start saying things like, well, how can the NFL be scripted? Because like there's this Hail Mary play that like, how could somebody do that? Or like, how could someone do this move that you can't script because it's all improvisation? I'm just gonna say this as somebody who's watched football off and on for many, many years. You don't have to script a game in the sense that you literally have like, okay, this person does this and then this happens and this person does this. The only thing you have to do to rig a game is to control the refs and the kickers. Because let's be real, if you're really being honest with yourself, if you're a football fan, is everybody wants to give credit to the quarterbacks. Games are won and lost based on kicks and refs. I say this as a Tom Brady fan. For some of you, these names might not mean anything to you, but if you're like an old school like Tom Brady fan from the very beginning, Tom Brady is not Tom Brady if the Patriots didn't have one of the greatest kickers of all time in Adam Vinatieri. Adam Vinatieri won a lot of Tom Brady's early games. There's some people actually I've seen out there that argue that Tom Brady would not even still be Tom Brady if it weren't for some of Adam Vinatieri's kicks. It's kickers and then it's refs. Refs can control the games. So you can have all the other players literally just like go out on the field and just tell them to play and just do their thing. And then all you have to do is have the refs and the kickers be the ones that are controlled. You can make a game go any way you want it to. Is that what's happening? Don't know. It would be very easy to do. And I'm gonna say this, sports gambling has obviously been around probably since the game was invented. I don't really know the history of sports betting. It's not something I participate in. But now that it has become legalized and it is so common and the advertisements for it are epic, I always say follow the money. You gotta follow the money And there's no way that these huge sports betting sites that are putting all this money into the advertising, the house always wins. These sports betting sites are absolutely controlling the games. They're not gonna leave this stuff up to chance. They're just not. Now, I know there's gonna be people that are gonna be like, why don't you just bet on the games? I don't understand the nuance of all of this. I imagine maybe if you can, you might be able to work the system. The sports betting sites are always gonna rig it so the house wins. That's just how it's gonna work. I don't necessarily think, and there are probably people out there that could figure out the outcome or exploit the system, so they might be able to make some money. I'm not that technical or that knowledgeable about football in that sense. Follow the money. People will say, like, are the Chiefs paying people off to rig the games, or is this person? It's the NFL and the sports betting sites. Like, it's the big corporations. It's not the little people that have that kind of power and that kind of influence. It's the big corporations. You gotta look to them. Honestly, I firmly believe that every corporation that is basically only making money off exploiting people's addictions is corrupt. I'm just gonna say it. That was my little rant about things being rigged. So when people are like blaming the teams or blaming the players or things like that, it's the corporations. You gotta follow the money, it's the people at the top. So let's get into the Brady Mahomes comparison. Brady was considered the GOAT of football, as the best quarterback ever, because he's won more Super Bowls than any other quarterback, but he's never won 3 in a row. And now that Patrick Mahomes is potentially going to win 3 in a row, there's a lot of conversation about, well, is that going to make him the greatest quarterback of all time? So a lot of people are comparing the two, and the Chiefs setting themselves up to kind of be the next football dynasty. They're getting a lot of hate. And there's a lot of people that are comparing the Patriots dynasty and the Chiefs dynasty and kind of speculating as to why the Chiefs seem to be getting more hate than the Patriots. Now, I will fully acknowledge that, first of all, I'm biased as a New England Patriots fan. I'm biased in this conversation, I am. But I also want to step back and look at this a little bit more from like a media and public image perspective. I'm not going to sit here and argue stats and stuff like that, because that's just not what I do. But I also do think it's fair to acknowledge, and I don't know if people fully grasp this. Tom Brady's first season, and I'm going to get into kind of his football story in a minute. Tom Brady's first time stepping into the NFL as a starter was in 2001. 9/11 had just happened. Like, social media wasn't even a thing. So I do think it is fair to acknowledge that social media has changed the way that people view things. It's changed the conversations around things. It's made everything feel much more intense. So to compare the hate against the Patriots from a time period where social media wasn't as strong to a time right now with the Chiefs and with social media being as strong as it is, it's not a fair comparison. So I do think we have to acknowledge that. I will also say that as much as, yes, people hated the Patriots when they were on top, for sure, I don't think it was as much hate as the Chiefs are getting now. And I actually don't even think it's necessarily like the Patriots versus the Chiefs. It's the Brady fans versus the Mahomes fans in reality. This is where I kind of want to get into some of the core principles of masculinity, or what makes someone a man, or go from boyhood to manhood, so to speak. Okay, so any of you that aren't familiar with Tom Brady's football career, I'm just going to give a general summary. Tom Brady was not a star football player. He was not like some kind of a college star. He was drafted very late in the draft, the year that he was drafted. I think that they said, I read, he had like the slowest sprinting time of any other quarterback that was being drafted that season. He did not have the physique of a football player. People just did not have much faith in him. So he got drafted very late in the draft. He kind of you know, snuck into the NFL. People did not anticipate much from him. Again, he was not a star. He was somebody that was basically like, I just want to play football and I just love football, and was just dedicated to being there. I'm pretty certain he was actually like a 3rd string quarterback with the Patriots, if I'm not mistaken. And the Patriots at the time, it was 2001, 9/11 had just happened. The country was kind of in a state of chaos. And the Patriots had Drew Bledsoe as a quarterback, who was, at one point in time, he was the highest paid quarterback in the game, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody could probably fact check me on that, but I'm pretty sure he had one of the biggest, if not the biggest, contracts at the time. He was the big money player. He was the guy that the Patriots had all their faith in, that they thought was going to take them to the Super Bowl. Bledsoe gets injured. They bring in Brady. Gotta be honest with you, the vibe, at least in New England, was like, okay, we're done. This isn't gonna happen. Whatever, we just gotta get through the rest of the season and we gotta get Bledsoe back and whatever. Like, no expectations. Then Brady starts winning, and he starts winning a lot. And as the season's coming to a close, he keeps winning, he keeps winning. I remember him winning his first game in the NFL. And I remember saying, and I don't have anybody that can actually witness this, but I remember saying like, oh, he's gonna take us to a Super Bowl. He did, because apparently I'm psychic, but I'm only psychic when nobody else is around to believe me. But yeah, he ended up taking the Patriots to a pretty epic Super Bowl win. There were a lot of like nail-biter games, a lot of games that our kicker Adam Vinatieri, who does not get enough credit in Patriots history as far as I'm concerned. There were a lot of games won by the kicker. There was a lot of games that were really pretty epic games. I mean, and that was such a, I remember, I still get chills thinking about watching that season, and I watched it very intensely because the Patriots at that point were kind of a veteran team. There were a lot of veterans on the team that had been around for a while that were really trying to get to the Super Bowl, and Brady was like this kid. I mean, he wasn't childish, but he had this very like wide-eyed, like, I just want to play football. Like, it was this very kind of like very genuine, like every time he would go out on the field, it was just like, I get to play football. And it was this energy that really enlivened everybody around him. And granted, these were veterans. It really felt like the rest of the team was very inspired by this kind of like new energy that came in, and that really pushed them through. And I'm sorry, you cannot watch that season. If you were there and you experienced it, you can't watch that and not be inspired by it. Because Brady will always, to me, and I don't care what else happens, I don't care what else happens in his career or how many Super Bowls he ended up winning, which to me just solidified that legacy even more. Brady is and always will be the greatest example of somebody who, when it was his time to step up, he stepped up and ran with it. Nobody expected him to actually step in and do anything, and he completely defied everybody's expectations of him. And to me, he will always be an inspiration for that alone. But if you think about it, he started off as the ultimate underdog. Nobody expected anything from him. Nobody even really wanted him on their team. He was completely seen as just, you know, we'll get a third string guy in here. The expectations were nothing, and he completely proved everybody wrong. I'm sorry, I don't think that you can really know that story about him. And even if you're mad at him because he won all the time, or if you're mad at him because he beat your team all the time, or if you're mad that he was on top, or any of the controversies that have happened throughout his career, I feel like you can't know that about him and know that about how he started and not have admiration for him. Now, when you look at a Mahomes, who was kind of always the star, he was always the star guy, he was drafted the first round and things like that. He went in to the NFL as a star, as a guy that they were expecting a lot from. That's a different energy. Like, he wasn't the underdog. He wasn't the guy that nobody expected that came from out of nowhere. And so his wins are never gonna feel as sweet. He didn't have to overcome everybody overlooking him. He didn't have to overcome that challenge. And this is where, you know, there's a saying, what is it saying, that like hard times make great men? You can't have great men if men are not having to face challenges, if men don't have to overcome hurdles. That's what makes men great. Men that have easy lives usually get weak. If you want to make a man a masculine man and a healthy masculine man, and it doesn't always turn out healthy, but if you want a healthy masculine man, he has to overcome challenges. Has to happen. And I've gone into this in a lot of other videos. You need initiation processes, and that's one of the things they go into in the book King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, about one of the things that's missing in our society is initiation processes to initiate boys into manhood. And one of the ways that they would do that in, you know, in history was you just like throw a boy into the woods and just see if he can make his way back, and if he survives, he's considered a man. Now, that's pretty brutal. I get it. It's very similar to the film 300, and kind of that, like, you just push a young boy into danger, and if he can survive, well, he's considered a man. He's considered a warrior. That's kind of what happened to Brady. If you think about it, like, he was not considered somebody who was going to achieve much. He was definitely like undervalued, managed to like just get into the NFL. He was kind of thrown in the trenches. Like, here, the star is out and he got thrown into the fire and he fought his way out, and that's why he's seen as a warrior. It's that transition that makes you into a man, that makes you into a masculine man. I'm not saying that automatically makes someone masculine, but like that's what it takes in order to transition boys into men. And you kind of get the impression, looking at the Mahomes situation, he never had that. And I'm not saying he's never had struggles in his life. I mean, if you really dive into kind of his family dynamic, I think that there's a lot of complications there. Like, his dad was a former pro baseball player, I believe. He's had obviously some drinking problems. His parents are divorced. His brothers had a lot of legal problems. So Mahomes has got some struggles when it comes to his family and upbringing, I'm sure. But when it comes to his professional life, he's kind of always been coddled. He's kind of always been babied. And as I've mentioned in a lot of other videos, a lot of pro athletes never transition from boyhood to manhood because they never have to. Because so often when pro athletes are, like, they show a little bit of skill or athleticism, they just get babied and coddled and kind of get everything handed to them and put up on a pedestal, and they kind of become king babies. Like, they never actually have to transition into manhood. And I think the reason why you get a Brady is because he wasn't put up on a pedestal. He wasn't coddled in that sense. He had to fight and work for what he got, and it made him a better man and a better player because of it. And people, even if you hate someone who's winning, people are always going to value the underdog that then became the champion more than somebody who was always intended to be the champion. I do also notice too, and this is something I really want to point out when it comes to masculinity, because I've always noticed that Brady, and watching him over the course of time, and honestly, I don't think that you can really have a conversation comparing Tom Brady to Patrick Mahomes as to who's going to be the GOAT until you see Mahomes' full career. Like, you see how long he stays in the game and how long he plays and how long his career is gonna go, like how much longevity he's gonna have. Because Brady was successful as like this like backup quarterback that came in and was with a veteran team and was playing with a whole bunch of veterans, and then transitioning into him being the veteran himself on a team with a bunch of younger guys. And that's where you had Gronk, who it was kind of his iconic go-to guy, Julian Edelman, and Danny Amendola, for those of you that aren't NFL people, was recently on Dancing with the Stars. Brady then turns into the veteran that is then mentoring the younger guys. I would actually argue that, you know, one of the reasons why I think people are taking to Julian Edelman, he had an iconic football career, but he also has a successful podcast now, is because he was also kind of the underdog. You know, he wasn't really necessarily like ideal size for a football player. He kind of squeaked into the NFL, got in, and then just like worked his butt off. He didn't have everything handed to him. He really had to work for it. And he ended up as, I believe, one of the only wide receivers to ever get an MVP in the Super Bowl, because usually it goes to the quarterback when you win a Super Bowl, and Brady usually got the MVP. It's those stories of people that had to fight their way to the top and didn't have it easy that are always going to be more engaging to us. We're always going to have more respect for the people that had to work for it, particularly when you have men watching this, but I think women as well. Because when men have proven that they can overcome obstacles, they feel like more stable people. They feel like a better leader. You know, watching Brady in his career and seeing how he transitioned into a leader was also amazing to watch. But he was able to step into that leadership because he had to work his way to the top. Brady also is somebody who has said his whole career his focus was on longevity. He wanted to play until he was 45. He wanted to stay healthy enough, he wanted to stay safe enough, and that's what got him there. And he did it. Not many people play that long. Not many people have that long an NFL career. He managed to do it. We all know he set a goal for himself and he did whatever it took to get to that goal. It's that goal setting and it's that achieving that goal that makes people respect someone. Even if you don't like them, you're still gonna respect them. There's also a sense, and if you're comparing like Brady to a Mahomes, and it's not just Brady to Mahomes, but the quarterback is a leadership position on the team, and leadership is a huge part of masculinity, and leadership can happen in different ways, and there's healthy leadership, there's unhealthy leadership, there's various types of leadership and ways that people can lead. But a big factor in leadership, and I would say in healthy masculinity, is stability. You need to feel like a grounded individual. When a man gets emotional, he's in his feminine energy, which isn't bad for a man to have connection to his feminine energy, but emotions are feminine energy. We tend to think of emotions as being wrong. It doesn't mean that they're wrong, but if a man is in his emotions, he's not in grounded masculine energy, so he's not going to feel as stable. Because a man in too much feminine energy is going to feel unstable. If you really look at the difference, I mean, just on a basic level, because I've seen a lot of people like imitating Mahomes and his like quarterbacking style on the field, which again is working because he's winning games, so I'm not knocking the style. But it's much more loosey-goosey. It's not like he doesn't feel like he has control of his limbs. It's working for him, so I'm not criticizing it. But if you notice a lot of other quarterbacks, particularly Brady, I would say Jalen Hurts, who is the quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles, who's also going to the Super Bowl, they have a grounded stability about them. They don't have a lot of excess movements. They're very focused and they feel very grounded. Brady always felt very grounded when he played. Jalen Hurts has that same vibe to him. Energetically, those things are going to be a factor. And if you watch like Brady throughout his career, he has a stability to him. I actually saw an interview recently with a defensive player. He wasn't with the Patriots. I don't know the guy's name and I don't know what team he was on, but I do know he was a defensive player that, for those of you that aren't familiar with football, he would sack the quarterback, which basically meant like you knock him out, like you tackle him, you take him down. And apparently he had sacked Tom Brady quite a few times. So he was asked if Brady was his favorite quarterback to sack, and he said no. And he said it was because you could never get Brady riled up. Like you could never get him to crack and like show emotion. He said his favorite quarterback to sack was Cam Newton because you could get Cam Newton emotional. Now, if you watch the video that I made about Cam Newton, you can tell he does not have a grounded masculine stability, like at all. So that doesn't totally surprise me. But, and men know this inherently, if you can get a man to show emotion, if you can get a man to show that he's emotional about something, he's showing his weakness. When it comes to masculine energy battling, it's weakness. I'm not saying that a man showing emotion is weakness, but if you're talking about him showing up as a masculine leader, if you can get him in his emotions, you've conquered him. Like, if a man who needs to be in grounded masculine energy for whatever it is that he's doing, he needs to lead, he needs to fight, he's in battle, if you can get him in his emotions, you've won, because he's shown his weakness in that moment. I'm not saying that men should never be allowed to show their emotions, but it's got to be time and place. If you're in battle or you've got two masculine energies that are competing, men inherently know if you can get a man emotional, you've won. And women know this too. As a woman, you know if you're pushing a man's buttons and you get him to react emotionally, you know you've won. Like, I mean, you've kind of lost because you have an emotional, weak man, but you know that's a sign of his weakness. When a man cannot control his emotions and he cannot be grounded and stable, that's him not being grounded in his masculine energy. The fact that even people that Brady was playing against were like, yeah, you couldn't rattle him. And it's interesting because I didn't know this moment. I remember last year when Travis Kelce had his like temper tantrum and like pushed his coach and things like that, which I think was just like little boy behavior completely. I didn't realize that there was also a video going around of Mahomes having a temper tantrum. And if you look up Patrick Mahomes tantrum, you can see a video of this. I'm not going to include videos in here because it just, I get knocked with copyright stuff and it's just a mess. But if you look up Patrick Mahomes tantrum, you'll see he's throwing a full-blown like toddler temper tantrum because he didn't get his way. That's little boy behavior, not masculine energy at all. Some people are gonna say that's passionate. It's not. It's not. It's weak and it's not masculine behavior. But that's what you get when you get someone who has not had to really truly work for what they're getting. They've just always been the star and they've always been pushed to the top and they've always been, I mean, I don't want to say he's never had to work for anything, but like when you've been pushed up on a pedestal and you haven't had to truly work for it, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get the little boy temper tantrums. Whereas when you get someone like Brady, and if you look up, because I tried looking up Tom Brady tantrums to see if I could find correlations, and like you could see sometimes Brady would have some cracks in his emotions, but it was not the same. Like it's very different energetically. So if you look up Tom Brady's tantrums, which is interesting because I've only seen the Tom Brady tantrums, he's always in a Tampa Bay uniform, which for those of you that aren't familiar was his, like the last team he played the last couple of years of his career. Much less when he was with the Patriots because he was much more grounded. He was much more grounded in his stability. When he would get riled up, it wasn't from a place of, you know, I didn't get my way, I'm gonna stomp my feet like a toddler. It was more like, it was really what passion is, of like, let's get other people riled up, let's get everybody riled up, let's get it together. And also too, a lot of his tantrums were him beating up himself because he was taking the responsibility of the leadership and taking it seriously and not going around and being like, this person made the mistake, this person made the mistake. He was like, no, I'm the leader, so I'm going to take on the responsibility, which is a big aspect to this stuff. And I'm not saying that Mahomes doesn't appreciate his teammates. I'm not saying that the Chiefs aren't like a team by any means, but you know, a lot of people talk about the Patriot way, how the Patriots managed to get so successful. And when you really start looking into like what the mentality of the team was and how the team operated, you really do see why they were successful for so long. And I know there were some scandals. None of those scandals were actually found to be true, but I realized that there's scandals with the Chiefs and stuff, and those haven't officially been found to be true. So, you know, there's speculation across the board, but there's a lot of aspects to the Patriot way that I'm shocked that more teams are not using as a model, because they really were effective for a long time. In fact, I saw an interview with Chad Ochocinco. For those of you who don't know or don't follow football, he was a former NFL player. He's got podcasts and does sports commentary now. He also married one of the Women on Basketball wives for a short time, and they had a really messy relationship. He was on Dancing with the Stars too. Whatever, I'm just giving you guys a context. He's kind of entertaining to watch, but he's an egomaniac. Totally is. He's played for a couple different teams, but he did play for the Patriots for a short time. And he was actually known for saying that he hated playing for the Patriots. He didn't like being on the Patriots team. He didn't want to be traded to them. He did not want to be on that team. And when they kind of asked him why, essentially the gist of it was because there's no room for stars there. Everybody is on an equal playing field, and nobody gets to be the star. And he wanted to be the star. That's what he wanted. That's how he wanted to play, is what it is. But that is part of the reason why the team was probably so successful, was because, again, they had a system where it was a team effort as opposed to there being big stars. And one of the things, and I remember reading this about Brady a long time ago, of course, when Brady first was playing in the Super Bowl, won his Super Bowl and stuff, I mean, he was like a third string quarterback, so he just had like an entry level contract where he was not making much money. I very much remember him winning the Super Bowl MVP his first season, and he won like a car or truck or something as part of the MVP, and he was just like, oh, thank God, because I've been driving like my beat up truck to work every day that barely runs. Like, this guy was not the big money guy. He wasn't signed with a huge contract, so he was driving to work in like an expensive car and things like that. Brady, throughout his Patriots career, was vastly underpaid for his position, for his success. He always made less money than the going rate for quarterbacks. Towards the end of his career when he was with Tampa Bay, it was a little bit different, but that was kind of his like last ditch, like, okay, I'm getting ready for retirement. I'm gonna make some money now. I did see an interview recently with somebody that worked for the Patriots about Brady and his negotiations and stuff, and you know, Brady's team and the Patriots were back and forth with contract negotiations, and Brady was just getting frustrated and was like, this is just a distraction. He was just like, made some comment about like, if I can't live supporting my family on $6 million, then I've got problems, as if like he wasn't all about like getting the most amount of money. I do remember reading an article, and I don't know if this was actually like out of Brady's mouth, so to speak, but a lot of people have really believed that one of the reasons why Brady took less money was so that the team had more money to get better players. So like everybody on the team kind of made less money than kind of the going rate for their positions, but more players got more money, and you got better players on the team. And part of the justification for that was that if they win all the time because they have a stronger team, these guys are going to get more outside endorsement deals and more opportunities to make money outside of the Patriots. To a certain extent, considering how many former Patriots players do commentary, which is not that common. Not every guy in the NFL is guaranteed a post-football career. I just did a video about Jessica Simpson and her husband. He played in the NFL. He was a star college player, played in the NFL. I can't even find what he does for work now. Married Jessica Simpson, doesn't really have much of a career, it seems. So it's not a guarantee that if you're a guy in the NFL, you're automatically gonna have a post-NFL career. But so many of the Patriots are now doing commentary, they're doing promotions, they're getting deals. Not just the quarterback, but a lot of players. And some of that is because they're more well known, because they were championships. They won so many Super Bowls and they've been in the media more. So in reality, did some of them make less money while they were playing football? Yes, but a lot of them were set up better for longevity in their career. And Brady's focus has always been on longevity. And he knew, this is speculated, I obviously haven't talked to him about this, but this is something that a lot of people have talked about, and it does line up with his brand TB12, which was all about like health and longevity, health in later years, not like pushing yourself so intensely that your body burns out when you're young. It's setting yourself up to have longevity and to be mobile and active throughout your life. That was the basis of his TB12 brand. And that was a big part of his focus in his career, because if he gets a better offensive line so that he gets sacked less, he gets fewer injuries. Brady had a pretty, I would say, low injury rate throughout the course of his career because he had better people protecting him. You could get a better defensive line. If he didn't have good people that, you know, could actually make touchdowns, he could be the greatest quarterback in the world. I've seen Brady say a few times when you ask him who the greatest quarterback in the world, who his favorite quarterback is, he'll say Dan Marino. A lot of people say Dan Marino as their best quarterback of all time. He never won a Super Bowl. He didn't have a good enough team around him. I actually think Joe Burrow might be on that same path, but just throwing in that take. I don't actually know that much about Joe Burrow. But it's things like that that you factor in as he's kind of sacrificing. He's not out for the biggest paycheck. He's not out for the most money because he's thinking about the overall team. The Patriots had a stronger overall team because they structured it so that they could have a stronger overall team. Whereas with the Chiefs, granted, I'm not from Kansas City and I'm not a Chiefs fan, but I have watched them in the playoffs the last 2 seasons, and honestly, like, I know who Mahomes is and I know who Travis Kelce is because he's dating Taylor Swift. I know who their kicker is because he had that drama with that speech at a college and stuff like that. And I know who Andy Reid is because he looks like Wilford Brimley. But, and again, I don't think any of them are bad guys. I mean, Travis kind of bugs me. I think he's an opportunist and the kicker is questionable, but like, that's a whole other conversation. But like, I don't think that like Mahomes is necessarily like an awful person and he's like cheating or something like that or whatever. And I'm not saying that Mahomes doesn't appreciate his team, but he's not making sacrifices for his team if you really think about it. And that's an aspect to looking up to somebody as being a masculine leader, of being a hero, which again, we're talking about playing sports. We're not talking about curing cancer here or like saving the world. But you know, a lot of kids look up to these athletes as being heroes, and Brady having that sense of self-sacrifice. Now I realize that it's not, you know, getting 6 million as opposed to 16 million is not the biggest sacrifice in the world, but he wasn't going for, what can I get for myself? How much can I get for myself? It was always that sense of like, we need to make sure that everybody's taken care of so that I have the best team around me in order to achieve the goal. That's leadership. And I'm not saying that Mahomes doesn't appreciate his team. I'm not saying that Mahomes is, you know, a terrible leader, but you're not getting that same vibe from him. So people aren't going to admire Mahomes in the same way they admire Brady because he doesn't have that. He didn't have to overcome as many hurdles and fight his way to the top as much as Brady has over the course of his career. He hasn't proven that he can step from one team up into a leadership position of a whole new team. So, you know, Brady has shown that he can lead whole different groups of players over the course of a long career. Mahomes hasn't proved that yet. Maybe he'll be able to, I don't know, but he hasn't really proved that yet. And you also have somebody like Brady who has been to a certain extent self-sacrificing. Now granted, he was also married to the highest paid supermodel in the world, so it's easier to be self-sacrificing when your wife's making that much money, but their relationship is a whole complicated issue. I have a video about that. I'm not going to get into their relationship, but I'm not saying that Brady's sacrifices were like massive sacrifices, but there is something to the idea that he didn't have this ego sense of like, first of all, I have to make more than my wife. He didn't have this ego sense of like, I have to be the highest paid quarterback. He was willing to forego that ego stuff to do what was best to have a better team so he could win more. And not only just him win more, but like the team itself could get more championships, could get more wins, so that everybody on the team had more opportunities, particularly opportunities like over the course of their life. And again, I'm not saying Mahomes is like a bad person necessarily, but you don't get that same energy from him. So he's not going to be as respected as Brady. Maybe at some point down the road in his career, you know, at the end of it, when you see how it all goes, people might look back on it and see the growth and see the changes and see what he's accomplished. But you know, right now, even if he gets this 3 in a row, he's still not going to be seen by the public as being as great a leader because of these other factors. Also, people truly love rooting for the underdog. Like I mentioned before, Brady was the underdog in his very first season. He was a massive underdog. Mahomes has never been the underdog. Now, Brady has beaten Mahomes once in a playoff game and once in the Super Bowl. So the fact that we're even having a conversation about who's better, Brady beating Mahomes at the very end of his career and Mahomes kind of being in his prime, so to speak, although people are calling this his prime, but like his younger years. There is a sense when it comes to sort of like the journey of a hero is you kind of like meet your mentor. But the fact that Mahomes met his mentor essentially and didn't defeat him kind of gives a sense for a lot of people of like, well, he hasn't completed that journey from boyhood to manhood. Now Brady's retired, so obviously like that's not going to happen. But, and I also do want to point out that I did hear Mahomes in an interview talk about when Brady beat him in the Super Bowl, Brady actually waited for Mahomes after the game, and instead of celebrating with his team and everything like that, that Brady actually gave Mahomes a pep talk and said some really great inspiring things to him. So like, I don't really believe that this like competitiveness and stuff, this like who's going to be the best and like pitting them against each other, I don't think that they have that. I think Mahomes just wants to be the best player, and I think, you know, Brady's proved his place in the world, so I don't think that Brady has anything to prove in this. I think I've never heard Brady say anything bad about Mahomes. I think Brady's got more class than that. People love to root for the underdog, and the Patriots, particularly Brady, has very consistently been the underdog. Like, even when they were winning, they still were the underdog in many instances. Not all the time, obviously, but like I talked about, when Brady first came into the NFL, he was the underdog. Nobody thought he was going to make it at all. No one thought he was going to do anything, and he stepped up when it came time to go. And his whole first season, people were like, yeah, like this is going to happen. Everyone thought it was a fluke, and then all of a sudden he wins a Super Bowl. I mean, he was the ultimate underdog when it came to the NFL. You know, the Patriots have had a lot of players along that time that have been the underdog for sure, like I mentioned Julian Edelman, but they've had some star players too, but they've definitely had underdog players. And it's also like, we've seen Brady have ups and downs in his career. We've seen him get beaten twice by Eli Manning, who isn't even considered the best Manning brother quarterback. I mean, Brady has the biggest Super Bowl comeback in Super Bowl history, where the Patriots were practically like out of the game and they came back in the fourth quarter. Brady has been down and overcome those obstacles. He's come back even stronger, and he's done it over the course of his career. And watching those ups and downs, watching him go through lows. The Patriots had a scandal where they had a player that turned out to have murdered someone, and that Aaron Hernandez situation is so heartbreaking, and I don't want to exploit that, but like, you know, we're talking about somebody that these guys were working with day to day. I mean, that's got to take a huge toll on a lot of people involved in that whole situation. Going through the course of scandals and the course of changing teammates and ups and downs and things like that, people like to root for the underdog. And even when the Patriots were winning and people started to dislike them because they seemed like they were always in the Super Bowl or seemed like they won all the time, but they really did have ups and downs throughout their career, and people really love to root for people when they're down to get back up. Mahomes hasn't really had those downs. Like, yeah, he was beaten by Brady. Well, okay, but him getting beaten by the greatest quarterback of all time is not really a down. Again, if you're watching this after the Super Bowl and you know what the outcome is, what I'm about to say may sound ridiculous, but I'm gonna say this. I actually think the greatest thing that could happen to Patrick Mahomes' career is for him to lose the Super Bowl this year and not get the three-peat and have to fight his way back to being the greatest. I think him getting this, the greatest so young, and getting pushed in that direction, again, it's making him the villain because he's not someone who we see as somebody who had to fight for something. A lot of stuff about they think that the refs are babying him, they think that the game is fixed, and that's a whole conversation in itself. And look, I don't think any team that's ever won anything hasn't probably had certain calls in their favor and not in their favor. So I'm not sitting here and saying that Patriots were always innocent and never had calls go their way or anything like that. I mean, the rules have changed. There's a lot more penalties and there's different things and stuff like that. But people are seeing Mahomes as being babied, and I really do think that if Mahomes wants people to root for him, if the Chiefs want people to root for them, they gotta have some downs, they gotta have some defeats that they have to fight their way back from if they want people to root for them. Now, obviously, Chiefs fans are always gonna root for them because you're always gonna root for your team, but that's the reason why the whole country wanted the Lions to win. The whole country wants the Lions to win because they've never been to the Super Bowl, they've never won the Super Bowl. They're a franchise that's been around forever. They're getting good enough to show up to the playoffs, but they're just not quite making it. And people love to root for the underdog, the team that's like scrappy guys that are like, we're gonna get there. Like, we're so close and we're gonna get there. I'm gonna tell you, and I know this is baseball, not football, but as a Red Sox fan, and maybe I'm alone in this, but I'm probably like the only Red Sox fan that actually fell off the bandwagon when they started winning the World Series, because they were so much more fun when they were cursed. If you're not familiar with the curse of the Bambino, the Red Sox traded Babe Ruth to the Yankees long before any of us were born. The Yankees became like the winningest team in baseball for a long time, and the Red Sox didn't win a World Series for like 80 plus years. And watching the games, it was theater. I mean, that's why people watch WWE even when they know it's fixed. It's theater, it's entertainment. And watching the Red Sox during the years, like the few years before they won the World Series, and like they would get so close to winning, and then something would happen that would go wrong and they'd lose, and you'd be like, it's the curse. It was fun. It was like, it was fun to root for the team that was like almost there but couldn't quite make it. And it made winning the World Series so much sweeter because they had to work for it. I mean, I wasn't around for the 80 plus years before it happened, but like knowing how long it took, knowing this. And again, whether you believe in the curse or not, like, it was fun to watch. And like the Yankees were the evil empire. Again, they were winning all the time, so they were seen as villains. But in reality, like, people didn't really like hate the Yankees. I mean, I know Red Sox fans, like, okay, there was some hate there, but like, it was because everybody knew they were such a good team, and they were mad because they always won and they always beat us, but like, they got to be portrayed as the villains. And you had the underdogs that had to defeat. It's a David and Goliath thing. You know, it's like the underdogs have to beat the team, but people hated the Yankees because the Yankees were so good. And I say this as a Red Sox fan. It wasn't because people thought they were cheating or, you know, or anything like that. Like, people would rumble about it, but like, generally speaking, it was just like, oh, it's a great team. I remember in this time period, Derek Jeter played for the Yankees, and of course, like, he would always get taunted in Boston. And I remember in an interview one time, Derek Jeter saying something about, well, I know everyone in Boston hates me. Boston didn't hate Derek Jeter. Boston respected Derek Jeter. They were just mad that he was playing opposite them. If Boston had traded for Derek Jeter, the Red Sox would have thought he was the greatest thing in the world. Like, he would have been welcomed with open arms. Like, they would have loved him because they respected him. They loved to hate him because they were playing against him because they knew how good he was, but they still respected him. Part of the problem is that when you have Mahomes, a lot of people don't respect him. And, you know, right or wrong, but this is a lot about public image. People don't look at Mahomes as someone that they're respecting necessarily. I mean, some people do, but like, I'm saying, like, overall. Whereas you look at someone like Brady, there was a respect there, even when you didn't like him. You know, there was a sense of like, I don't like him because he's always beating my team, but you respected him because he was so good. Whereas, like, there's a sense with a Mahomes that because of a lot of the drama, and again, because he hasn't proven himself to have to overcome obstacles and things like that, at least not publicly, people don't really want to root for him, and a lot of people are finding it hard to respect him in that way. And that's where you're going to get the difference. People love to root for the underdogs. That's why they want to root for the Lions. And I know there might be some Lions fans or people that are rooting for the Lions that aren't going to want to hear this, but I think them losing in the playoffs this season, I was disappointed too, because I like to root for the underdog, so I was rooting for them too. But the longer it takes them, like, the more playoffs they get to and the more they get to the top, and this time they were like the #1 in the NFC and everything, and like, they get there and like, they almost there, but then they lose at the last minute and stuff. I do believe eventually they're gonna win the Super Bowl. It's gonna make that win so much sweeter. Again, take it from a Red Sox fan. It's those like, ooh, they're almost there and they don't quite make it. Those are sweet. It's the underdogs, or the people that like are really fighting for it. Those are the people you root for. The people that seem to just be kind of like walking through and making it look easy. Brady never really made it look easy because he had the ups and downs throughout his career. I actually don't think that winning 3 in a row is even really that, I don't say it's not impressive. I mean, winning a Super Bowl in general is impressive. I mean, because not that many people do it, but I don't really even think winning 3 in a row is really all that significant, because it's just showing that you're kind of on a high point in your life. But can you overcome a low point and fight your way back? Like, that's what makes someone great. Like, that's what makes someone a hero. That's what makes someone masculine, is overcoming the challenges and things like that. And that's what people want to see. And at the end of the day, I know I argue with people all the time where people are like, sports are a skill, they're entertainment. And whether you believe they're real or rigged or fixed or scripted or whatever, it's entertainment. We're not curing cancer here. The general consensus I see from like anyone who's not a Chiefs fan and anyone who's not an Eagles fan, because obviously the Chiefs want to root for the Chiefs and the Eagles want to root for the Eagles. That's how the Super Bowl is working this year. And anybody who's not a Chiefs or Eagles fan, the common theme that I hear is like, well, can we just give a ring to Saquon Barkley? Now, for those of you that don't know, Saquon Barkley is a running back for the Philadelphia Eagles. He was playing with the New York Giants for a long time, is considered a great player, but just wasn't getting a ring because he wasn't on a strong enough team to make it to the Super Bowl. Apologies to the Giants fans out there, don't come for me, but that's just the reality of things. And a lot of people are like, well, can we just give a ring to Saquon? And I have to admit, like, as a Patriots fan, I really just watched the playoffs this year. I didn't watch the whole season, but I was watching the playoffs, and like, I gotta be honest, like watching the Eagles team in the playoffs, those were the most fun games for me. Like their snow game that they had, I mean, I have a soft spot in my heart for snow games being from New England, but they're a fun team to watch. I think because you have like a quarterback in Jalen Hurts who's, yes, very easy on the eyes, but also feels so grounded and so stable. And then having somebody like a Saquon Barkley who just do things on the field that are just like mind-blowing. People want to root for him because again, he's, I don't want to say he's the underdog, but he's the guy that like has worked so hard, and this is finally his moment to shine, and that's why people are rooting for him. They root for guys like that. They root for people who you feel like have really fought to earn their position, and people aren't seeing the Chiefs and Mahomes as being those guys. You know, I'm not saying that behind the scenes there isn't some of that going on, but at least publicly, people are rooting for the people that they feel like have really worked hard to get to where they are and have really fought to achieve something and that have really earned it. Because as I've said before, like men only truly appreciate that which they had to earn. Women are the opposite, which I won't get into in this video, but like men need to earn something in order to appreciate it. And I think men also see that in other men. So if men see a man getting a lot of opportunities or getting a lot of things and he hasn't earned it, they don't respect him as much. And I think men also don't respect that in themselves. If they get handed things, men need to know that they've earned things in order to truly appreciate them, which is why we value men that have had to overcome obstacles. We value rooting for the underdog in men. It's more valuable that way. I will note that like I don't necessarily think that Mahomes seems like a bad person. I don't think he ever comes across like a bad guy. I will point out, because I have heard people talk about Jalen Hurts and like guys complain about his pretty privilege, which I find interesting that guys get mad when a man is perceived as having pretty privilege, but like when a woman has pretty privilege, they're all like, well, yeah, of course, hotter chicks are gonna get more opportunities. In reality, like when it comes to men and pretty privilege, is Jalen Hurts going to get more like on-camera deals? The modeling agency has not signed that man and they're missing an opportunity. I know Danny Amendola, I believe, for the Patriots was like the first NFL player to sign with a major modeling contract, if I'm not mistaken. I feel like Jalen Hurts, if a modeling agency has not signed him, they're missing an opportunity. But like, is a guy like that going to get more on-camera opportunities? Of course. If you got a good face, you're gonna get more endorsement opportunities. That's just the way it works. A lot of guys would just say that that's just the way it is with women, but now all of a sudden they see a guy that that's happening to, and now all of a sudden it's a problem. It's not gonna help you on the field by any means. I don't know. I do think it's funny in my observations about Mahomes, and again, I don't think he comes across necessarily like a bad guy, but I don't think he comes across like a very mature guy. For his age, I think he's got more growing to do, but I know a lot of people hate on his wife. I'm not really on board with the Brittany Mahomes hate. You know, does she post a lot on social media? If you find it annoying, don't follow her. I don't follow her because that's not the kind of content that I need, as, you know, like a football wag posting her pre-outfit stuff. If that's what you're into, follow her. If it's not, don't. Like, I don't necessarily see a problem with that. It does appear like Patrick is an involved father, makes the effort to be with his kids and take time to be around his kids. At least that's publicly, which I think is a good message. I think that's a good thing to put out there as far as being a role model and stuff. I think his emotional behavior on the field and things like that, I think could use a little polishing. I do want to make a note though, because I guess because I followed football off and on over the years, and when I started watching it a little bit more last season because of all the dramas going on with Taylor and Travis and blah blah blah, pre-game fashion of some of these players, it's gotten very experimental. I don't know when this shift happened because I wasn't paying close attention to it, but some of these NFL players and their pregame fashion, it's like they think they're on a runway show or something. I guess maybe to some extent they are, and they're probably getting gifted a lot of this stuff to wear because they know they're gonna get seen. I got a lot of crap in my Rihanna A$AP Rocky video where I talked about this. A clip of this on TikTok got a lot of guys pissed off, but I stand by this. Now, you can be in masculine or feminine energy, and it's not about like a surface appearance thing necessarily. But men that dress for attention, the bright colors, the like super high fashion looks and stuff, they're in feminine energy, because adorning yourself with sparkle, fashion, color, things like that, that's a feminine energy trait. So if you're a guy who's wearing like super high fashion, like notice me, look at me items, you're in feminine energy. A lot of guys got pissed off at that. Again, I'm not saying it's wrong, your choice, but know that you're not in masculine energy, you're in feminine energy. A masculine man is typically going to dress more utilitarian. If you think about it, more masculine professions and more masculine careers tend to have uniforms, whether it be like a military uniform or a police uniform, whether it be like a suit, like a classic men's suit, or a lab coat. Like things that are very uniform tend to be more masculine. If you open a man's closet and he's got literally an entire closet of like the same clothing item repeated over and over again, he has a uniform, I'm not saying he's guaranteed to be masculine, but that's a much more masculine mindset. If you've got a guy that's got all kinds of different colors and styles, and he's got sparkle, he's got jewelry, he's got this and that, he's much more likely to be in feminine energy. Again, I'm not saying that as a shame or a judgment, I'm saying that as awareness. You as a man want to be in more grounded masculine energy. You're not going to be dressing in high fashion clothes in like a hey, look at me, notice me kind of a way. If you are a man who's fine with being in feminine energy and you want to be, you know, stylish, flashy, look at me kind of thing, your choice. Just know that you're putting that out to the world. Understand that people are going to respond to you differently. Again, when I talked about this with like A$AP Rocky and his outfits and things like that, I did get a lot of pushback, and I had a lot of guys that really did not understand. Like some guys knew what I was talking about and they were just mad at it, but I did get a lot of guys who were like, so what, we can't look good now? We can't look fly? We can't dress nice? What are we not even supposed to shower? It's like, okay, you guys are taking it way too far. But I did notice that when you look at some of these players, like the Chiefs, Travis Kelce, massively feminine energy the way he dresses. And his clothing style has shifted since he's been with Taylor, but like he dresses like in feminine energy. It's like, notice me, it's I want attention, it's flamboyant, like he dresses for feminine energy. He dresses for look at me, pay attention to me. That's feminine energy. Patrick Mahomes dresses like that. Like it's very feminine energy. I wanted to show you some examples of a man dressing for feminine energy of like look at me being seen, and some men who are dressing in masculine energy but still classy. When you want to be a man, you want to dress in masculine energy, you want to embody your masculine energy, you're gonna go with neutrals and you're gonna go with like very classic looks. Saquon Barkley's looks are notorious for that. I saw somebody comment when I was looking up some of his fashion choices, like why does he always look like he's about to do some kind of corporate business deal? That's how you look slick in masculine energy. It's neutrals, he looks great, but he's not like, hey, pay attention, look at me, I'm a fashion plate, which is very much feminine energy. Being seen, being witnessed, it's very much feminine energy. It's why you have tuxedos, which used to always look the same, because the man was really just supposed to be the framework for a woman in a beautiful gown. Somebody like a Saquon in his fashion looks is much more, I'm not saying he's in masculine energy or not, I don't know, like that's not the only thing that determines your energy, but he's dressing for masculine energy in this sense because he is very grounded, very classic. You notice him because it looks very classy, but it's not like, hey, look at me, pay attention to me. It's neutrals, it's classic. I would even say, like, I feel like Jalen Hurts, he goes back and forth. Like, if you want to go something a little bit edgier, he's got some looks that are, you know, you're pushing the fashion limits a little bit, but you're still not looking too flashy. Now, he also had a look where he was wearing like that big sparkly diamond necklace thing. That was very feminine energy. Like, that's like, anytime you've got like sparkle and shine on you, you're showing off feminine energy, because feminine energy is sparkle and radiance. You're Patrick Mahomes, you're Travis Kelce. It's feminine energy. It is. I mean, you're dressing for feminine energy because you're dressing to be seen and to be witnessed. You're adorning yourself with fashion. That's feminine energy. And again, there's a lot deeper aspects to masculine and feminine energy than just that. So I don't want you to just say, oh, this man is in a classic suit, so he's automatically masculine. There's more to it than that. But if a man is dressing very flamboyantly, generally speaking, he's not stepping into the world trying to be in masculine energy, because he's being very like look at me, pay attention to me kind of thing. And that's a more feminine energy trait. The reason why most masculine careers have uniforms, it's the reason why classically men wore tuxedos that all looked the same, but women wore evening gowns, because women were like, the man was the setting, like a basic setting, and the woman was the jewel. That's typically how masculine feminine energy works. These were just some thoughts that I had on the upcoming Super Bowl. If you watch this after Super Bowl Sunday, I stand by what I said. I don't know what the outcome is actually going to be of the game. I'd love to hear your thoughts and stuff. Honestly, like I said, I'm not a football expert, but I have been following football off and on for most of my life, and a lot of this stuff is about energetics. It's a lot about the media and how the media represents things. I mean, I think people are really starting to wake up to the fact that sports betting is so influential, and it'd be interesting to see where the NFL goes as time goes on. These are just some of my thoughts. I think sometimes looking at these things in the abstract terms, seeing how men are handling themselves playing football on the field, and you can kind of see some of the nuance with like guys that are really embodying their masculine energy or guys that really aren't in that stable, grounded masculine energy. I think it's kind of easier to spot these things in everyday life. If you have guys that are very grounded and stable, they're always going to feel safer. If you have guys who they're getting emotional and throwing temper tantrums and things like that, those guys are never going to feel safe. They're not going to feel safe, and they're not going to feel stable. You want a guy who's had to work to overcome things. You want a guy who's had to face challenges and adversity, which is going to look different in different people, obviously. But, you know, you want men that have had to prove themselves in the world, because they're going to feel like better leaders. These are just some of my observations about football, but in reality, I just want to take some of these things, you know, some of these topics, so we can kind of take some of these things into our everyday lives, and we can have happier, healthier lives and relationships. So I kind of hope you enjoyed me indulging in a little bit of football banter. And if you guys are going to watch the Super Bowl or boycott it or have any strong feelings, please be respectful in the comments. No, I don't think that Taylor Swift will get proposed to at the Super Bowl and there'll be a huge release of her, like re-release of her Reputation album or something. Like, I don't think that those things are actually going to happen, but you know. At this point, who knows? So anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please give it a big thumbs up, and be sure you subscribe to my channel. Leave a comment below with any thoughts or video requests. Any engagement on this channel actually really helps boost it in the algorithm, so more people can get these messages. If you want to check out my guided journals or my courses, masterclasses, or any of my social media links, they are in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you join me next time.